You know that feeling when life just kind of falls apart? Well, today we're going to dig into a really practical framework for handling problems no matter how big or small they are. And believe it or not, our guide comes from an analysis of a famous story, the wedding at Cana. It offers a surprisingly simple, straightforward way to deal with things when they go wrong.
All right, let's jump right in. The source material kicks things off with this brilliant analogy. Picture this. You buy a toy for a kid, right? You're all excited. And then you see it on the box, those three little words we all dread, some assembly required. Suddenly, that simple gift turns into a massive, complicated project.
And the argument here is that life itself is kind of like that. It's this incredible gift for sure, but it often feels, well, disassembled. From marriage licenses to new jobs, things come in pieces. And let's be real, sometimes they fall to pieces. So the big question isn't if stuff is going to go wrong, it's how are you going to respond when it does? Do you just get mad, frustrated, or is there another way to handle it? So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the problem at the wedding. Then, we'll break down the specific, explicit prayer that was offered. After that, we'll see the result, from water to wine. And finally, we'll talk about how this all applies to your problems and your prayers. Okay, let's set the scene for our case study. We're heading to the Gospel of John, to this little town called Cana. It's a wedding. Pretty standard stuff, right? Jesus and his disciples are there as guests. It really should have been just another party, a totally forgettable day. But then something happened that made it anything but. And what was it? A full-blown crisis. The wedding party ran out of wine. Now, in that culture, that wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a social catastrophe. And the source makes this super relatable. Think about it. This is your department running out of money. This is your team totally out of ideas. It's you, at the end of the day, completely out of energy. The tank is just empty.
So this is the moment Mary, Jesus' mother, steps onto the scene. And what's amazing is what she doesn't do. She doesn't freak out. She doesn't start yelling. She just calmly walks over to her son and says something incredibly simple and direct. And in doing so, she gives us this amazing model for what to do when our own tanks hit empty.
And her simple action, well, according to the source, that is the definition of prayer. It's not about finding the perfect poetic words. It's not about some huge dramatic gesture. It's just taking a problem and bringing it to Christ. The idea is simple. Before the problem gets a hold of you, you get your problem to a source of help. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting. The source breaks down her approach into these two super clear, actionable steps. It's not some mystical, complicated formula. It's just step 1, be specific, and step 2, have explicit faith. Okay, so what does that actually look like? Let's dig in.
Okay, first up, specificity. Look at what she says. They have no wine. That's it. Notice what she doesn't do. She doesn't start pointing fingers at the host or the caterer. She doesn't get all hyper-spiritual and dramatic. She just states the problem, clear as day. Here's the situation, period.
And then comes the second part, explicit faith. So after she tells him the problem, Jesus kind of pushes back a little, He says his time hasn't come yet. But Mary's response is amazing. She just turns to the servants and tells them, do whatever he tells you. See, she did her part. She brought him the problem. Now she's trusting him completely to do his part. The source puts it perfectly. Prayer isn't about trying to convince God to do what we want. It's about trusting God to do what is right. It's not arm twisting, it's just trust. So what's the result of all this? What happens when you combine that specific prayer with that explicit faith? Well, according to the story, it actually prompts Jesus to change his plans. He decides to step in and act. So here's the play-by-play. First, the command. Jesus tells the servants to fill up these 6 massive stone water jars. Just fill them with water. Then the action. The servants, remembering what Mary told them, they just do it. They fill the jars all the way to the brim. And the result? When they pull some out, the water has been transformed into incredible, high-quality wine. And we're not talking about just a couple of glasses to tide them over. Let's put this into perspective. The source actually did the math, and the amount of wine he created was the equivalent of about 93 of our modern-day bottles of wine. 93!
This wasn't just a patch. This was an abundant, over-the-top, blowout answer to their problem.
Okay, so this is the real takeaway. How do we apply this? The whole point is that this isn't just some nice ancient story. It's meant to be a practical guide, a template for you and me to use today. To really drive this point home, the source has us imagine a what-if scenario. What if Mary hadn't prayed? What if instead she just went and argued with the wedding host? You can picture it, right? A huge fight breaks out, the whole wedding is ruined, total disaster. And the crazy thing is, Jesus was standing right there the whole time, ready and able to help if only someone had asked. So the punchline is pretty clear, right? Take your problems to Christ. Don't take them out on other people. Don't try to drown them at the bar. Because an unprayed for problem, the source says it's like an untreated thorn. It just stays there, getting more and more painful and infecting everything around it.
But you might be thinking, what if I have problems all day long? I mean, my life feels like I'm constantly putting out one fire after another. That's a totally fair question. And the source points us to the Apostle Paul, whose advice was pretty simple. Pray about everything. The idea is there's no problem too small or too frequent for this two-step model.
And to really hammer this idea home, the explainer wraps up with this incredibly powerful modern-day story. It all comes down to a single, simple word: Abba. Imagine a crowded, noisy market in Jerusalem. A little girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old, gets separated from her dad. She's lost. She's scared. So she cups her hands around her mouth, and she just cries out one word: Abba. It's this intimate Aramaic word. It's like crying out, Daddy. And instantly, her father, in the middle of all that chaos, stops dead in his tracks. He turns, he finds her, and he scoops her up to safety. And that picture, right there, that's the whole point. You are not built to carry all of your problems by yourself. You're just not strong enough, you don't have all the answers. But here's the thing, you don't have to be. Help is right there, just waiting for you to ask. So let's end with this thought. What if you tried this 2-part model on the very next problem that comes your way? What would happen if you just stated the problem specifically and then responded with explicit faith, trusting your Abba for the answer? Really, what could change?